Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do a 30-minute grid journal. That's right, in under 30 minutes, even though the video is less than that. So here is a sneak peek of the beautiful grid journal that I created. I use collage, I use stamps, I use stencils. Let's get started. So I made a template for my grid journal. I traced basically the post-it notepad and I cut out the template, and that allows me to just draw lines like you see me doing here. And I have the grid journal all done. Now, because I want to keep the area white in between, I'm trying to mask off that area, and I'm just running a line of painter's tape across and around, and that's just going to keep that area white. Oop, this one is a little thicker, so I'm adding another layer there. So I've done two because I was attempting to do two grid journals at the same time. Then what you want to do is make sure you have good adhesion with the painter's tape. I don't want any paint or whatever I happen to be putting on to seep under there. I want to keep those lines as pristine as possible, although, there is room for error and less precision. So this sheet of collage paper I made just using a font on my Word program, and I blew it up to the size that I wanted with the font selection, and that gives me some script that's larger than what I could get with any kind of stamp that I would have. This also means I don't have to buy script stamps. I can collage paper. This I printed onto copy paper. You can also print it onto tissue paper and get a different look. So I am just ripping and adding to each of the 6 grids on here. I'm putting the same elements on each grid, but I'm trying to change it up a little bit, different directions. And this, when you work on a grid journal, you get to experiment and play. So one of the things I want to get comfortable with is collaging. So the first 3 layers of this are all collage. So I'm just kind of gluing that in. I cut a straight edge because I don't want it to go over the tape because I'm going to be removing that tape. So I cut a straight edge along there, and I'm gluing this down with fluid matte medium. Then I decide I'm going to add some of this blue collage paper. There's a little bit of grunge on there. And I'm, again, auditioning in the different places. The goal with grid journaling is that maybe you have the same elements pretty much on every grid, but you're changing it up. The direction, the shape, the size, you're playing with. And then maybe one of these mini compositions you're going to like, and then you might do that on a larger scale, on an art journal page, on a canvas. So again, I'm cutting the straight edge there with the scissors once I have the placement, and that just means I'm going to keep it clean. I grab this designer DIY colored coffee filter. I noticed that it had blue dots on it. And I thought, oh, these colors really go well together. So I'm going to add, 3 different collage papers here. And this is basically using those collage papers, set the color story for this grid journal. For every grid journal, you're going to pick colors. And because they're smaller squares, I like to keep it to about 3 colors. So you can see I'm using different shapes, different sizes. I'm auditioning it. But with grid journaling, I'm also not overthinking it. I'm moving fairly quickly, making decisions as I go. And then once I have the basic orientation, I'm gluing it down. And I'm going to make it work. At this point, I have no idea where this is going to go, what I'm going to do next. I'm kind of crossing those bridges when I get to them. And that's one of the reasons I like grid journaling, because you are experimenting, because you are trying new things, because you're working on these little squares and it's seemingly less risky, less precious. So there's the grid journal. It sat for a few days. I got busy with life. There's another grid journal there. You're going to see me finish that one. When I came back to this, I decided I'm going to add Naples yellow. Basically, we've got primary colors here: yellow, blue, red. And I'm thinking I might add a little gesso. I actually end up not adding gesso there. I'm going just with there I add gesso and then I stop. But I'm just adding the Naples yellow, and I'm liking how I can still see the script collage paper through there. And I'm trying not to get the yellow on top of the blue or the peachy apricot color collage papers. I'm just adding a third color here, and I am trying, at this point, I'm trying to keep the white space. Then I decide, ooh, what would happen if I did some stamping on the blue? Give it a pattern. And I grabbed this stamp. It just happened to be one that was sitting on my desk that I failed to put away when I should have. Hands up if that's you. And I'm putting on paint and stamping. And I'm right here, I just find out that I put a lot more paint on and I like the bolder look. So I'm wiping off this one and I'm going to restamp it, getting a bolder, using more paint basically, and getting a bolder pattern. So the collage papers, even though you've put them down, you can always embellish them and add to them. And again, I'm crossing those bridges when I come to them. I'm not making these decisions. I'm looking at where I'm at, and whatever I do this step kind of guides the next step. Just enjoy the process. That's what grid journaling's all about. So I'm liking what's going on here, and I decide I want to add more of that coral color. So I'm mixing up the quinacridone magenta and the Naples yellow, and I'm just adding that in, extending where the coral color was, and it's a little different. It looks a little different than the collage paper, and I like that. It's the same color, but it's different. And there goes my white space. I am always challenged in keeping my white space. But I'm loving the color combination that's here. I like what's in front of me. So, you know what? It's all worth it. Then I decide to I want to add more blue on there. And I like that center of the flower. There's holes there, or circles, dots. And oh, I love the look of that on the either coral or the yellow. It ties in with the navy collage paper that I had. I just kind of fell in love with it at this stage. So two things with your stencils, look at parts of the stencils, a little um, pattern that's there. This is a daisy stencil. I'm not using it as a daisy stencil, but I love that center part, and it works perfectly for this. And I think this just made these grids. And I go to town. Probably did a little more than I should because, well, I can't control myself. Now that painter's tape is very distracting. It's green. It doesn't go with everything. I prefer the blue painter's tape, but even that would be distracting. And then I decide I'm going to add some gold. So I get my multi-line applicator. Now this is like hair dye stuff, and I'll link that video where I talk about this. And I'm just adding some multi-lines bling on here. Now this ends up being somewhat dimensional, and it adds a perfect bling and shine to it. And again, with each grid, I want to do something slightly different. So whether I start at the top or go down, do waves, do swoops. But I love how this multi-line one gets so quick and easy. Definitely something I need to play with more and explore all the things I can do with it to add to a grid journal or a journal page. So this is very wet, so I'm going to set this aside and let it dry. Now it's a couple more days. Life happened again, interfered with my plans. Now I'm peeling it off and it's starting to lift up the paper. So here is a pro tip. Heat up the painter's tape that loosens the adhesive, and you can pull it up without ripping the paper from underneath. So I'm just going to work my way around here. In a minute, I'm going to speed up the video, but I'm going to basically apply heat so I don't rip off the paper. And I love when you move off the painter's tape and you reveal the grid. That green is very distracting, but when you get rid of all of this, OMG, I love, love, love it, especially the shininess of the gold edition. So this looks amazing to me. I'm so happy. Now, remember I traced with a pencil that some of that didn't exactly line up, so I am just simply erasing those pencil marks now. How easy is that? So those are all gone. Now I'm going to do some shading around each of the grids. This is just going to edge all of them, kind of finish it off. This is part of the finishing act. So I'm using my angle brush. I'm on my silicone mat here and using the floating acrylic shading technique that you've seen me use a gazillion times. I do have a video where I teach this technique. It's one that's well worth your time to learn because I use it on every single page in multitude of ways. So I'm just shading all the way around. And then I go back and I might add it to make it a little bit darker. Now, while I've sped up parts of this video, you're going to have to trust me that this in its entirety only took 30 minutes. Now I'm auditioning some focal images. I like to take my grid journals after I explore them and turn it into an art journal page. So I'm testing out the butterflies, some flowers, sometimes the scale's not good. Butterflies, I've overdone them. This girl, I really like how she looks on here, but I think I can do better with on another journal page. So you're going to see her coming up in some upcoming video. I could stencil in some dragonflies in between just to fancy it up and turn this into an art journal page. Then I was looking through my stash and I had these hearts. I could put hearts there, that one, but I only had the one cut out of some collage paper. And I really didn't want to start making something new. I wanted to use stuff in my stash. So I have bigger hearts here that I could paint, like that blue one. Then I have the open heart, like that. I have lots of these. These are ones that I cut out with my silhouette for a project. So I painted some of them blue, the navy that I have in the background, same color. I kind of did that off camera. I just like the addition of it. Do I want 2? Do I want 4? Where do I want to put them? And again, I try to force myself. I give myself a minute or so, and then it's Karen, make a decision. Could you put the 4 there? So that's kind of the plan in this minute. So I'm going to paint one more and, easy peasy, just grab the paint out of the tube. But I thought, well, what if I put a sentiment here before I make my final decision? Now, this is the short and sweet sentiment pack, and it has short, sweet words and phrases, 2 to 4 words, and different fonts, which you can then print out on paper. Now, this was printed on coffee dyed paper, and I love how that works with those colors. So I picked 3 words, and I'm going to glue those in there, and maybe then I'll have the 4 hearts. Kind of fancied it up a little bit. I'm good with this. So let's move ahead. Decision made. So there I am just painting that heart. And then I'm going to dry it before I glue it on. And then I decide, oh, what if I did it in that coral color? So I do paint a couple in the coral color. And then I end up with 6 hearts. I have them, might as well use them. They've been in my stash for multiple years. Time to use them. So I'm lining them up, putting them there, and just gluing it down with gel medium. And I chose gel medium because those hearts are kind of actually tag board, so they're a little thicker. I grab my secure glaze pen and I'm outlining, and I'm going to outline the hearts, the squares, and everything. Pro tip, and this goes under the category of do as I say, not as I do. Wait for your glue to completely dry, or you're going to kill your pens or have more difficulty. I did not wait till I dried, but that is what I recommend. So then I'm outlining the squares, kind of doing rough. I'm not trying to be precise because I can't be. The sooner that you accept the imperfections and embrace them, the easier you're going to have it. Stop beating yourself up that you're not making a perfectly straight line or whatever. Well, there is the finished page, and I absolutely love how this turned out. I love these grids. I love the color scheme. I love that addition of the gold using that multi-line hair applicator tool. Such a good addition to my art journal, art stash. So there is the page before I added to it, and there's the page after. Remember, you can leave the grid journal just with the grids if you want. I hang my pictures up in my studio for a while, and then once I have 30, 40 of them, I put them back on the coil. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you give something in this a try.